What's up, Mythbusters? Stop everything before you keep believing whatever you've been told. Today I'm here to blow your mind with an hour of lies you use every single day without stopping. Your own body and the food you put in your mouth. You believed all of these things with total confidence. And it's not your fault. We were all taught the same stuff. In school, on TV, at the Sunday table with your uncle-in-law lecturing everyone. You're going to hear facts, figures, studies, and real names that close this topic for good. Fair warning. At some point you're going to say, this can't be true. I believed this my whole life. So you know what to do. Subscribe and stay, because this is going to change the way you look at yourself in the mirror and the way you open the fridge. The classic schoolyard myth. If you dream that you're falling off a building and you hit the ground without waking up, you actually die in your bed. An impossible lie to hold up. Think about it for a second. Who told you this? If the person who supposedly hits the ground never wakes up to tell the story. It's a myth that debunks itself. Tons of people dream they're falling, hit the ground, and wake up totally fine. Or don't even wake up and just keep sleeping. Those falling dreams are extremely common. They tend to happen early in the sleep cycle, and sometimes come with a muscle jolt. The famous twitch that snaps you awake. Nobody has ever died from completing a fall in a dream. You fall, you bounce, and you keep living. The only real risk in a falling dream is the scare itself. Here in the Rio de la Plata region, we say it proudly. Mate doesn't have caffeine like coffee does. It has matine, which is supposedly something milder and different. Lie, and one of the most beloved ones out there. Matine and caffeine are exactly the same molecule, identical. There's no chemical difference whatsoever. The name matine was invented more than a century ago, back when people believed they were two separate substances. And even though science has since disproven that, the myth stuck to yerba mate like an old habit. The same thing happens with the so-called theine in tea. That's also just caffeine and nothing more. What actually changes between mate and coffee is the amount and how it's released, more slowly in mate. Same substance, different packaging. Matine is just caffeine wearing an Argentine accent. You've seen it in the movies. The boxer who drinks a glass of raw eggs before training to get strong. A lie you really shouldn't copy. A cooked egg gives you more usable protein than a raw one, not less. When you cook an egg, the heat unfolds the proteins, and your body absorbs around 90% of them, compared to barely half of that when you eat it raw. On top of that, raw egg contains a substance called avidin, which blocks the absorption of a vitamin called biotin, and it carries the risk of salmonella. In other words, raw is both less nutritious and riskier. That movie character was drinking a shake that was lower in protein and higher in danger. If you want the strength that eggs can give you, cook them. The raw version is pure movie theater. The star argument of a lot of diets. Meat rots inside your gut and poisons you from within. An ugly lie, and a pretty common one. Meat doesn't rot inside you. Protein gets digested up top, in the stomach and the small intestine, where acid and enzymes break it down almost completely before it ever reaches the large intestine. What happens further down is fermentation of fiber and leftover matter. A normal process, not some forgotten steak decomposing inside you. Your digestive system is built to process meat. We've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years. Eating too much processed meat does have real downsides, sure, but the image of a barbecue rotting away in your guts is pure fear with zero basis. Meat doesn't sit there rotting inside you. It gets digested and moves along, just like everything else. The fear that paralyzes more people than you'd think. Don't touch that mole. They say if you get it removed, it turns into cancer. A dangerous lie, because it can stop you from doing exactly what you should be doing. Removing a mole doesn't cause cancer. Quite the opposite. When a dermatologist removes a suspicious mole, it's to prevent or stop a melanoma in time. The idea that disturbing it wakes it up has no basis at all. That's pure folklore built on fear. What really matters is that you don't go removing them yourself at home, and instead have a professional evaluate and remove it. A mole that changes color, shape, or size needs to be shown to someone, not hidden. Skin cancer caught early is curable in the vast majority of cases. The danger isn't removing it. The danger is being afraid of it and never looking at it at all. It goes around with the tone of a forbidden revelation. If you cut out sugar, you starve the damaged cells to death. A lie, and one of the trickiest ones. Every cell in your body, the healthy ones and the damaged ones alike, runs on glucose as fuel. It's the basic gas of life. You can't cut off sugar to just some cells without cutting it off from your entire body. That's simply impossible. Eating less sugar is healthy for 1,000 reasons, but not for this one. And starving yourself to avoid feeding an illness is the exact opposite of what a body fighting something needs, which is energy and nutrition. Science is clear. No extreme zero sugar plan fixes a serious health problem on its own. Watching what you eat helps your overall well-being. But sugar isn't the secret accomplice you were told it was. They told you this like it was some sharp fact to impress people at dinner, that you're more bug than person, that for every one of your cells there are 10 bacteria hanging around. False, or better said, ancient. That 10-to-1 number came from a rough estimate made in the 1970s, repeated for half a century without anyone ever checking it. In 2016, a team at the Weizmann Institute, led by Ron Sender and Ron Milo, sat down to actually count for real. The result was almost a tie, around 38 trillion bacteria against 30 trillion human cells. The real ratio is close to 1-to-1. You're half and half, a duet, not some foreign colony. Your body isn't the hostile takeover you were sold. It's a fairly balanced partnership. You know that friend who claims to have a photographic memory, who looks at a page once and remembers it perfectly like a photo? A lie, or at least something that's never been proven. Something similar does exist in some kids, called eidetic memory, which lets them hold on to a vivid image for a few seconds, but it fades fast and almost always disappears by adulthood. The perfect, permanent photographic memory that adults claim to have, the kind that lets you read a book and store the whole thing, has never been confirmed in a lab. Your memory isn't a camera. It's more like a narrator that reconstructs the scene every single time, which is exactly why it changes details and gets things wrong. Whoever swears they have a photographic memory simply has a good memory and even better marketing. You draw it as the symbol of love, the one with the 2 curves on top and the point at the bottom, and you believe your actual heart looks something like that. Completely false. A real heart is a lumpy, asymmetrical muscle about the size of your fist, with veins and arteries shooting off in every direction, way closer to a chunk of meat than to a little sticker. That symbol has nothing to do with anatomy, and nobody really knows for sure where it came from. There are theories tying it to an ivy leaf, to an ancient seed once used as birth control, or to more intimate parts of the body. You gave a pretty face to the hardest working organ you have. Love draws nicely. The body draws weird. Popular wisdom is crystal clear. Beer before wine, you're fine. Wine before beer. In the clear. Sorry, everything's a mess. A lie. The only thing that determines your hangover the next day is the total amount of alcohol you drank, not the order or the mixing. This was actually tested for real. A 2019 study had volunteers drink beer and wine in different orders, and the headache was the same across the board. What does make a difference is the type of drink. Darker ones like whiskey or red wine have more congeners, compounds that make hangovers worse. But the sequence is a fairy tale. You've been mixing drinks wrong your whole life, and the blame was on how much, not on what order. Your liver counts drinks. It doesn't follow protocols. Grandma's recipe for insomnia. Close your eyes and count sheep jumping over the fence. 1, 2, 3, and you pass out. A proven lie. In 2002, researchers at Oxford University tested the trick on people who struggled to fall asleep. The result? The sheep counters actually took longer to fall asleep than the people who imagined a relaxing scene. Why? Because counting is a boring but active task. It keeps the brain busy with something monotonous that never quite lets go. Visualizing a calm place, on the other hand, pulls the mind away from its worries and lets it relax. So leave the sheep out in the field. To sleep better, picture yourself somewhere else, not playing cattle counter at 3 in the morning. You take care of it like it's a little plant, putting on creams, oils, vitamins to nourish it. A lie. It's deader than the lunch meat in your sandwich. The only living part of your hair is at the root, under the skin, inside the follicle. From the moment hair pokes through the surface, it's dead tissue, pure keratin, the exact same protein found in your nails and in a rhino's horn. That's why cutting your hair doesn't hurt, and why no shampoo actually feeds it, because there's nothing alive up there to feed. The most a good product can do is coat it so it doesn't break. You take care of your hair and nails like they're a pet, when really, you're polishing a statue. The living part is underneath. What you can see has already left. The classic hungover advice: have a beer the next morning, and the hangover goes away. A lie that just kicks the problem down the road. Drinking more alcohol while you're hungover only numbs the symptoms for a bit, because it delays withdrawal, but it doesn't cure anything. It just stretches out the misery and leaves you worse off later. A hangover is the sum of several things: dehydration, poor sleep quality, inflammation, and the byproducts your body creates while processing alcohol. What actually helps is water, rest, eating something, and patience, while your liver finishes the cleanup. The remedy of drinking more is the problem wearing a disguise. The only real cure for a hangover is time. Everything else is just kicking the can down the road. The quick conclusion: you sweated. You smelled bad. So sweat itself must be some dirty thing your body dumps out. A lie. Fresh sweat is almost odorless. It's basically water with salts. It has no smell of its own. The smell shows up later, when bacteria that naturally live on your skin, especially in your armpits, start feeding on certain components of a thicker type of sweat, and while digesting them, they release the compounds that stink. In other words, it's not the sweat that smells, it's the bacteria working on it. That's why deodorant fights the odor by attacking the bacteria, not the sweat itself. Your sweat isn't grime, it's cooling. Your body doesn't release dirt through your pores. It releases water to cool you down. The smell is the work of some microscopic tenants you came with straight from the factory. They tell you this to gross you out, that all that gray dust on top of your furniture is your own skin falling off. Almost a lie. You do shed dead skin cells all the time, but most of those flakes get eaten by mites or washed down the shower drain. The dust in your house is actually a mix. Fibers from your clothes and sheets, dirt tracked in from outside, pollen, pet hair, insect remains, and outdoor particles that sneak in through the window. Human skin is only a small fraction of the total. Dust isn't you falling apart. It's the whole outside world sneaking into your living room. You learned that pupils shrink in bright light and widen in the dark. End of story. Just a camera mechanism and nothing else. Incomplete. Pupils also dilate when you see something that interests you, or that you like, when you're excited, surprised, or focused on something difficult. Psychologist Eckhard Hess studied this in the 1960s, discovering that people's pupils would widen when they looked at things that attracted them. That's where the saying that the eyes give you away comes from. And there's some truth to it, because that reaction is involuntary and you can't fake it. Good card players sometimes wear dark sunglasses for exactly this reason. Your pupils don't just measure light. They also measure desire. Every time you drop a packet of sweetener into your coffee, some little voice tells you that's poison, that it's really going to hurt you. Half true, but a lot more reassuring than you'd think. In 2023, the World Health Organization's Cancer Research Agency classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenic, the same category where you'll find aloe vera extract. But in that same move, the committee that set safety limits kept the safe amount unchanged, 40 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day. To go over that limit, a person weighing about 155 pounds would have to drink more than a dozen cans of diet soda a day, every single day. At the doses you actually use, there's no drama. The little packet isn't going to kill you. You'd have to drown in it first. And a quick note, this isn't medical advice, and it doesn't replace your nutritionist. So if you have a specific condition, it's best to check with a professional. Grandma swears by it. You put half a cut onion in a plate next to the bed, and it soaks up the viruses. You wake up cured. A lie from the ground up. Onions aren't germ vacuums. They don't attract or trap airborne viruses. There's simply no possible mechanism for that. The flu virus spreads from person to person. It doesn't float around waiting for a vegetable to suck it up. All you're going to get is a room that smells like onion, and worse yet, a cut onion left exposed for hours can actually gather bacteria, so it's doing nothing to purify the air. If you get better while sleeping with an onion next to you, it's because your immune system did the job on its own, like it always does. The onion belongs on the cutting board, chopped up for the sauce. Curing the flu isn't in its job description. Mom's classic summer warning. Don't eat ice cream or you'll get strep throat. A lie. Strep throat, that nasty throat infection, is caused by bacteria or viruses, not by the cold of an ice cream. Eating something cold can irritate your throat a little, or if you're already coming down with something, make you notice the discomfort. But ice cream doesn't hand you the germ that gets you sick. People get more throat infections in winter because they spend more time cooped up together, spreading germs, not because of the cold itself. Ice cream in the middle of summer has no way of giving you a bacterial infection. If your throat hurts afterward, it was a coincidence, or you were already coming down with something. Ice cream is innocent. All it can leave you with is a cold tongue and a smile, not strep throat. The classic fridge move. You see a little green spot on the bread. Cut that piece off and calmly eat the rest. A mistake better not repeated. The mold you see on the surface is just the tip of the problem. Underneath, the fungus sends out invisible filaments called hyphae that dig deep into the bread, especially into something as soft and airy as the crumb. And some molds produce mycotoxins that can make you sick and that you can't see with the naked eye. Cutting off the little green spot removes the visible part, but the rest is already colonized even if it looks fine. With bread, soft cheese, or soft fruit that has mold on it, the right move is to throw out the whole piece. The spot is just the tip of the iceberg. What you can't see is what can make you sick. You had a cheese board for dinner and slept badly, and you already know who to blame. Cheese at night gives you nightmares. A lie. The idea became famous because of a supposed English study from 2005, funded by a group of cheese producers, which was never even reviewed by serious science. There's no real evidence that cheese causes bad dreams. In fact, cheese contains tryptophan and calcium, two things associated with better sleep, not worse. If you slept badly after a cheese binge, it was because you ate a lot of heavy food right before bed, which happens to anyone with any big meal. Cheese doesn't send you monsters. It sends you to bed with a full stomach, which is a different thing entirely. They told you this with fear in their voice. Don't eat burnt toast, it'll hurt you. And you stopped eating anything toasted at all. Half true. No need for panic or carelessness either. When you overbrown bread, potatoes, or anything starchy at high heat, a substance called acrylamide forms, which in animal studies at high doses has been linked to a higher cancer risk. That's why the advice is to brown food, not char it, aiming for golden rather than black. But going from a slightly overdone piece of toast to actually getting sick is a huge stretch, because the amounts in real life are small. It's not about living in terror counting your toast, it's about not eating burnt food every single day. The trick is simple. Golden, yes. Charcoal, no. Don't burn it to ash, but don't be terrified of a toasted color either. The trend that seemed scientific: eat according to your blood type. Type O eats meat. Type A eats more vegetables. And that way you lose weight and get healthier. A lie from start to finish. It was invented by a naturopath, Peter D'Adamo, with no solid basis at all, built on the idea that each blood type evolved during an era with a certain diet, something genetics doesn't support. In 2013, a large review of studies concluded there's no evidence whatsoever that eating according to your blood type does anything for your health. If someone improved on that diet, it was because they started eating healthier overall, not because of their blood type. Your blood type is useful for a transfusion, not for building a menu. Blood doesn't have culinary opinions. That diet is astrology in a lab coat. They sell it to you at a high price, promising it alkalizes your body, lowers your acidity, and prevents disease. A lie that goes against basic physics. Your blood keeps an almost fixed pH, around 7.4, controlled by mechanisms so strict that no water could ever move it, because if it really did move, you'd be in a medical emergency. Whatever you drink gets neutralized the moment it hits your stomach, which is an incredibly powerful acid bath. You can't alkalize your body by drinking special water. Your body regulates that on its own, and it doesn't ask for your permission. The alkaline water business runs on an idea that sounds scientific but isn't. It's water with a fancy name and an inflated price tag. Your pH isn't on sale at the supermarket. Your body handles it for free, without you doing a thing. There are only 4 flavors. You were taught this with a little diagram: sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. The 4 musketeers of taste. Incomplete. Missing is the 5th one: umami, that deep, savory flavor found in broth, Parmesan cheese, ripe tomatoes, and soy sauce. It was described by a Japanese chemist, Kikunae Ikeda, in 1908, when he wondered why seaweed broth tasted so rich. He discovered it was glutamate, and he named it umami, which in Japanese means something close to delicious. For nearly a century, the West ignored it, until receptors for it were found on the tongue, and there was no choice left but to accept it. Today, there's even debate over whether fattiness counts as a 6th flavor. So it was never just 4, and the list is still open. Your palate has more keys on it than you were ever told. You hand out a box of chocolates on Valentine's Day, fully convinced you're handing out fuel for love. A romantic lie. Chocolate contains phenylethylamine and tryptophan, substances that sound very sexy in a magazine article, but they're present in such tiny amounts that your body breaks them down during digestion before they ever reach the brain to do anything. To actually feel a real effect, you'd have to eat such a huge pile of chocolate that the only desire left in you would be to go to sleep. The aphrodisiac reputation comes from the Aztecs and from Casanova, not from science. What chocolate does give you is pleasure, because it tastes good, and pleasure improves any evening. But that little chocolate isn't a magic potion. It wins you over through flavor, not chemistry. The reputation is old and strong. Oysters light the fire of passion. That's supposedly why Casanova ate them by the dozen. A lie with great PR. Oysters do have a decent amount of zinc, a mineral your body uses to produce testosterone. And that's where the legend came from. But there's no scientific proof at all that eating oysters increases desire in a healthy person, since you already get plenty of zinc from tons of other foods. The supposed effect is more story than chemistry. The most aphrodisiac thing about an oyster dinner is probably the atmosphere, the candles, the champagne, and the company, not the mollusk itself. If it works for you, It's your head doing the work, not the oyster. Passion doesn't come served inside a shell. It comes from the moment, the mood, and who you're sharing the table with. When you catch a cold, out comes your uncle with the miracle cure. Eat raw garlic. It's a natural antibiotic. It cures everything. Half true, with a big asterisk attached. Garlic contains allicin, a compound that in the lab, in a petri dish, really does kill bacteria and fungi. The problem is that inside your body after digestion, that allicin breaks down and never reaches concentrations strong enough to actually cure a real infection. It's nowhere close to replacing a prescribed antibiotic, and believing it can might get you into trouble if you skip the real treatment because of it. As a seasoning, it's healthy and delicious. Nobody's arguing that. But garlic isn't a pill. It scares off a cold about as well as it scares off vampires, which is to say, only in the stories. A viral chain message claimed it with a straight face. Cold water in your food solidifies the fat and makes you gain weight. A complete lie. Water, cold or hot, has 0 calories, so it's physically impossible for it to make you gain weight. And the idea that fat hardens up inside you doesn't make sense either, because your body keeps a stable temperature of around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which warms up any liquid you drink within seconds. Cold water hits your stomach and instantly reaches body temperature. It doesn't freeze anything. In fact, drinking water with meals helps you feel full and eat less. Cold water won't add a single gram of weight. It's the most guilt-free drink there is. Drink it at whatever temperature you like. Inside you, everything ends up warm anyway. You're drinking sparkling water, and someone stops you. Watch out for the carbonation. It decalcifies your bones. A lie. Sparkling water is simply water with dissolved carbon dioxide, and that doesn't steal calcium from your skeleton or weaken your bones at all. The confusion comes from some old studies involving cola-type sodas, which contain phosphoric acid. And even there, the effect wasn't huge. The real problem is thought to be that people were drinking soda instead of milk. Plain sparkling water, the kind that's just carbonated water, has no phosphorus or anything else that would harm your bones. It's just as harmless as still water, only with bubbles. Sparkling water doesn't break down your skeleton. At most, it makes you burp a little louder after dinner. The familiar family verdict: don't lie down after eating or you'll gain weight, as if the bed somehow turned your dinner into fat. A lie. Weight gain depends on your total calories in versus calories out for the day, not on the moment or the position you're in. A short nap after lunch doesn't add a single calorie to your plate, and it can actually do you good, improving focus and mood in the afternoon. What is worth avoiding is flopping face up the second you swallow your last bite, because that can give you heartburn or reflux, but that's discomfort, not weight gain. The countries where napping is most common aren't exactly the most obese in the world. A nap doesn't make you gain weight. The size of your plate does, whether you're awake or snoring. You call it a beer belly and blame the whole thing on beer, like beer had some special magnet for your gut. Almost a lie. Belly fat is visceral fat, and that comes from excess calories and alcohol in general, not from beer specifically. People who drink too much wine or brandy pack it on too. They just never got a catchy name for it. What happens is that beer gets consumed in bulk, over long rounds, and usually comes paired with snacks, fries, and pizza at 3 in the morning. Alcohol also slows down fat burning while your liver processes it. It's not the beer, it's the whole combo and the amount. You pinned the wrong name on what's really just a calorie problem. The automatic move when you get back from the grocery store. Everything goes in the fridge, tomatoes included, so they last longer. A kitchen mistake. The cold of the fridge ruins exactly the best part of a tomato: its flavor and texture. Low temperatures shut down the compounds. that give a ripe tomato its rich taste and turn the flesh mushy in an ugly, mealy way. That's why a fridge tomato often ends up tasting like plastic, with no flavor at all. Tomatoes should be kept at room temperature, on the counter, away from direct sun, where they keep ripening and holding onto their flavor. Only if one is very overripe and you want to slow it down should it go in the cold for a bit. But as a rule, the fridge is the tomato's enemy. You put it in the cold to protect it, and what you're actually doing is killing its flavor. You've done this your whole life because the fridge conveniently has an egg holder right on the door, so it seems like that's where they go. Bad design, bad habit. The door is the warmest part of the fridge, and the one whose temperature changes the most, since it gets opened and closed constantly and lets in outside air. And eggs are delicate. The back and forth of cold and warm hurts them. The ideal spot is inside, on a shelf in the main body of the fridge, where the temperature is even and low, ideally still in their original carton, which protects and insulates them. The door egg holder is a factory trap, convenient but bad for keeping them fresh. Eggs want stability, not the thermal roller coaster of the door. Move them inside, and they'll stay fresher longer. At the fish market, you assume fresh fish from the counter is the best option, and that frozen is second-rate. The opposite of what you'd think. For eating raw fish, like in sushi, freezing isn't a flaw, it's a safety requirement. Extreme cold kills the parasites fish can carry, and that's why in many countries the law requires freezing before it's served raw. On top of that, fish frozen right after coming out of the water is often fresher than fresh fish that spent days traveling on ice before reaching the counter. Freezing done right doesn't ruin the fish. It protects both the fish and you. The sushi at your trusted restaurant almost certainly went through the freezer. Fresh isn't always better. Sometimes what's safest is whatever was properly frozen. Grandma's ritual against insomnia. A glass of warm milk before bed, and you drop like a rock thanks to the tryptophan. Half true, but more about the mind than the chemistry. Milk does contain tryptophan, an amino acid your body uses to make sleep-related substances. But the amount in one glass is so small, it can't sedate you on its own. The effect you feel is real, but it comes almost entirely from the ritual, the warmth, the calm, the routine that tells your brain it's time to wind down, just like when you were a kid. It's a loving placebo and it works, just not because of some hidden drug in the milk. If you sleep better with your warm glass, go right ahead. What puts you to sleep isn't the chemical, it's the habit and the comfort. The separated diet sold it to you like it was law. Meat goes one way and potatoes go the other, because your body can't digest them together. A complete lie. Your stomach handles proteins, carbohydrates, and fats all at once without breaking a sweat, because you've got a whole team of juices and enzymes working simultaneously for exactly that. In fact, plenty of foods already come mixed straight from nature. Beans, chickpeas, milk, they all bring protein and carbohydrate together in the same bite. The idea was popularized by a doctor named William Hay a century ago, with zero real evidence behind it. If you lost weight on that diet, it was because you were eating less overall, not because you separated your plate. Meat and mashed potatoes don't fight inside you. They've always gotten along just fine. It gets passed around in chain messages. That fruit eaten after a meal rots inside you and ferments, so you should only eat it alone and on an empty stomach. A textbook lie. Your stomach is a pool of acid so strong that it pulverizes fruit whether it comes alone or as dessert. It doesn't care about order. The idea that food ferments inside you and poisons you has no real support, because stomach acid kills off almost everything that reaches it. If a fruit-based dessert sits heavy on you, it's because of the total amount you ate, not some digestive war going on inside. Fruit for dessert is one of the healthiest habits out there. Eat it whenever you feel like it. There's no posted business hours inside your stomach. The classic warning: skip breakfast, and your body goes into savings mode and stores everything as fat. A lie. The so-called starvation mode, or famine mode, doesn't kick in just because you skipped one meal. Your metabolism doesn't crash or start hoarding fat in a panic because you went a few hours without eating. That would take days of serious fasting, not one morning without toast. Some people eat breakfast and some don't, and what determines your weight is the total amount you eat in a day, not the timing of your first meal. For some people, breakfast helps them avoid overeating later. For others, skipping it comes naturally and works just as well. There's no emergency switch that makes you gain weight for skipping breakfast. Your body is more stable than fear would have you believe. Eat when you're hungry, not because of a survival myth. The gym rule everyone repeats: eat small amounts of protein at a time, because anything over about 1 ounce doesn't get used and just gets wasted. Incomplete and poorly explained. Your body absorbs all the protein you eat. It doesn't just throw it out for no reason. It digests it completely, even if you eat an entire barbecue spread. What actually has a limit isn't absorption. It's how much protein you can use to build muscle in a single meal, which does have a performance ceiling. But the rest isn't wasted. It gets used for 1,000 other functions in the body, or as energy. The idea that anything past that amount just gets flushed down the toilet is false. Spreading your protein out through the day is practical, not mandatory. Your gut doesn't have a bouncer turning away the extra gram. It makes use of everything that comes in. The prejudice of the person eyeing the gym tub with suspicion: that's a steroid. It bulks you up artificially, and it's bad for you. A complete lie. Protein powder is just food, nothing more, usually dried and ground whey. The same thing you get when you eat a yogurt or a piece of cheese, just concentrated and convenient. It's not a hormone. It's not a steroid. It has nothing your body doesn't already get from a steak or some egg whites. It helps you reach your daily protein target more easily when food alone falls short, and that's it. It doesn't magically grow your muscles. Training does that. Confusing a food supplement with a drug is like confusing mashed potatoes with medicine. It's powdered food. You're the one who builds the muscle. The pig's bad reputation follows it everywhere. Pork is dirty, and the fattiest meat there is. A lie on both fronts. First, pigs aren't naturally dirty animals. They roll in mud because they don't sweat, and that's how they cool off, not because they enjoy filth. Second, lean cuts of pork, like tenderloin or trimmed pork loin, have a fat content similar to chicken, far from the image of pure bacon. The greasy pig image comes from the fattier cuts and from how it used to be cooked in the past. The trichinosis that scared grandmothers barely shows up anymore in pork with proper health inspection. Though heads up, cases still happen with homemade cured meats or uninspected meat, so that caution is real. Pork isn't dirtier or fattier than other meats. Chosen well and cooked properly, it's one of the finest meats out there. The move of the health conscious: tossing the yolk and eating only the egg white, because the yolk is all fat and cholesterol. A lie that makes you throw away the best part. The yolk holds most of the egg's nutrients: vitamins, minerals, choline for the brain, and fats that are largely healthy. It does have cholesterol, sure, but it's now known that dietary cholesterol has much less impact on your blood cholesterol than was believed for decades. For most healthy people, eating whole eggs doesn't spike cholesterol the way it was once feared. Eating only the white gets you the protein, while tossing almost all the valuable stuff in the trash. The yolk isn't the villain of the egg, it's the most nutrient-rich part. Tossing it means wasting the heart of the whole thing. The just-in-case logic: if vitamins are good, then more vitamins must be even better, so you swallow the pills. A dangerous lie. With vitamins, more isn't better, and in some cases it's outright toxic. The fat-soluble vitamins, like A, D, E, and K, build up in your body, and if you go overboard, they can hurt you. From headaches to serious liver or bone problems, the water-soluble ones, like C, get flushed out through your urine, so megadosing just ends up being the most expensive pee in the world. If you eat a varied diet, you already get almost everything you need without supplements. More vitamins doesn't make you healthier. Best case, it just costs you money. Worst case, you poison yourself with something you thought was harmless. The fitness advice repeated everywhere. Don't wait until you're thirsty. By then, you're already dehydrated. Almost a lie, and sometimes even counterproductive. Thirst is a fantastic and very precise alarm system that your body fine-tuned over millions of years. It warns you with plenty of time to spare, well before you're actually in trouble. For a healthy person on a normal day, drinking water when you're thirsty is perfectly enough. Forcing yourself to chug liters without being thirsty doesn't make you healthier. And in extreme cases, like athletes who drink way too much, it can cause a serious problem by diluting the sodium in your blood. You don't need to carry a water bottle forcing yourself to drink constantly. Trust your thirst. It knows what it's doing. Your body never forgets to warn you. Drinking more isn't a virtue. It just means more trips to the bathroom. They made you memorize this in school like a sacred number. 206 bones, not one more, not one less. Half true. You do have 206 as an adult, but you were born with quite a few more, around 300. What happens is that many of a baby's bones start out separate and fuse together over the years, especially in the skull and pelvis. That's why a newborn's head has those soft spots, the fontanelles, which close up later on. And on top of that, the exact number varies from person to person. Some people have an extra rib or an extra little bone in the foot. It's not a fixed number carved in stone. You started out as a 300-piece puzzle, and life gradually glued the pieces together. Even a famous movie sold you this one. The one where humans get used as batteries to power machines. A lie backed by bad math. Your body does generate electricity. Your neurons and your heart run on tiny currents. But we're talking about millivolts, nowhere near enough to power a device. In the form of heat, you release around 100 watts, similar to an old light bulb. But that heat isn't usable electricity. If you tried to light a bulb with your pure bioelectricity, you wouldn't come close, not even in your dreams. We're a chemical engine, not a power plant. The human battery idea is pure science fiction. Physically, it would be a net loss. You generate spark to think and to beat your heart, not to light up your kitchen. As a battery, you'd be a terrible investment. The magic number 8. The golden rule. If you don't sleep a solid 8 hours, you're wrecking your health. False as a fixed number. Sleep needs fall within a range, not a single number. And for most adults, that falls somewhere between 7 and 9 hours. Some people function great on 7, and others need 9, and that depends on genetics, age, and the day itself. There's even an extremely rare mutation that lets some people function perfectly on 6 hours with no harm at all. Obsessing over exactly 8 and anxiously watching the clock can sometimes make you sleep worse, because the anxiety of not hitting the number wakes you up. It's not a pass or fail test. Your body knows what it needs. Listen to it instead of the round number. You put it in your tea, fully convinced you're choosing the noble option, the natural one, the one that won't hurt you like refined sugar from a bag. Half true, and leaning toward a lie. Honey is basically sugar dissolved in a little bit of water, fructose and glucose, the exact same 2 building blocks table sugar has. It does have trace amounts of antioxidants and minerals, sure, but in such tiny quantities that you'd need to eat an amount large enough to make you sick just to notice any benefit. Your body processes the fructose in honey the exact same way it processes the fructose in sugar. You just change the jar, not the contents. It's still sugar with better PR. You picture memory like a flash drive, filling up bit by bit until one day nothing fits anymore, which is why you forget things. A comforting lie. The brain doesn't work like a hard drive with fixed capacity. It doesn't fill up or run out of room. Neurons and their connections form a network so massive that a 2016 calculation from the Salk Institute estimated your memory could hold at least 1 petabyte, 1,000,000 gigabytes, in the same league as the entire World Wide Web, millions of times more than your phone. If you forget things, it's not for lack of space. It's because the brain discards what you don't use to hold on to what matters. A smart cleanup, not a full disk. Learning something new doesn't erase the old stuff. If anything, the more you know, the easier it becomes to hang new information onto it. Your head doesn't fill up, it edits. And editing is the smartest part of the whole thing. You look at your dark circles in the mirror and jump straight to the conclusion: you didn't sleep enough. Sometimes true, but far from the only cause. A lot of dark circles are pure genetics. Thin skin under the eye that lets you see the blood vessels underneath, and that's something you inherit. You could sleep like a baby all night and still have them. Age also plays a role. Thinning the skin, along with allergies that swell the area, dehydration, and even sun exposure. Some people sleep a perfect 8 hours and have dark circles since birth, and others pull all-nighters and show nothing at all. Poor sleep can make them worse, but it doesn't always cause them. Dark circles aren't a medical report on your sleep. Sometimes it's just your face, exactly as it came from the factory. The logic seems obvious. You eat fat, fat sticks to you. Done. The opposite of simple. What makes you gain weight is your overall energy balance, eating more calories than you burn, no matter where they come from. The fat in your food doesn't teleport straight to your belly. Your body breaks it all down and, depending on the balance, either burns it or stores it. For years, fat was demonized, and store shelves filled up with fat-free products, loaded with sugar, to make up for the lost flavor, and people ended up gaining even more weight. There are excellent fats out there, from fish, avocado, walnuts, olive oil, that take care of your heart. The enemy was never fat by itself. It was excess of everything. Eating fat wisely doesn't make you bloat up. Eating too much of anything does. You're afraid of avocado like it's a forbidden calorie bomb. No. No avocado. That stuff makes you gain so much weight. Almost a lie. Avocado does have fat, sure, but it's good fat, monounsaturated. The same family as olive oil, the kind that protects your heart and lowers bad cholesterol. Half an avocado has somewhere between 120 and 160 calories, depending on its size, similar to a handful of walnuts. And on top of that, it's loaded with fiber and potassium that leave you satisfied and eating less afterward. In studies, people who add avocado to their diet tend to have a better blood fat profile, not worse. The problem was never avocado on its own. It's eating 3 of them on bread at 4 in the morning. In moderation, it's an ally disguised as a villain, green on the outside, good on the inside. The first sacrifice of every diet: buy bread because bread makes you fat. It's public enemy number 1, a lie with some nuance. Bread by itself has no magic power to make you gain weight. It's food like any other, and what matters is how much you eat overall. A slice of bread has around 70 calories, less than a lot of things you don't even question. The problem usually isn't the bread, it's what you put on top of it and how much. Like the bread basket you mindlessly polish off, waiting for the main course to arrive. Whole grain bread also adds fiber and helps you feel full. Cutting out bread overnight makes you lose water weight, not fat. Bread doesn't make you fat. Eating anything without limits does. And bread is often just the easiest scapegoat. Another diet victim: potatoes tossed aside because potatoes supposedly pack on a ton of weight. A lie with an asterisk. A boiled potato is one of the most filling foods out there. It's got a lot of water, fiber, and potassium, and quite a bit fewer calories than people assume. The problem was never the potato. It's what we do to it. Frying it in oil, drowning it in butter, or turning it into a bag of chips. That same potato that's light when boiled becomes a calorie bomb when fried. But the blame lies with the oil, not the tuber. A boiled potato with a bit of salt is cheap, healthy food. The potato doesn't make you fat, the deep fryer does. Once again, the food itself is innocent, and the sentence comes from the bad company we put on the plate. The fruit marked as forbidden in 1,000 diets? No bananas. They're too sugary, and they'll make you fat. An unfair lie. A medium banana has around 90 to 100 calories. It's loaded with potassium, fiber, and vitamins, and it keeps you full, making it one of the best quick snacks out there. It does have natural sugar, sure, but it comes paired with fiber that slows down absorption, nothing like the sugar in candy. Eating a banana doesn't make you gain more weight than any other fruit, and definitely not more than the cookies that sometimes replace it. Blaming the banana for weight gain misses where the actual extra calories in your day are coming from. Bananas are real, practical, healthy food. You cut it from your diet out of fear of its sweetness, when really, it was one of the most convenient allies you had. The rule seems universal. Salt equals high blood pressure equals danger, so everyone should eat without salt. Incomplete. Salt does raise blood pressure, sure, but not for everyone equally. There are salt-sensitive people whose blood pressure spikes with sodium, and salt-resistant people whose blood pressure barely budges no matter how much they salt their food. That difference comes down to genetics and each individual body. That doesn't mean you can dump salt on everything without limit, because excess does harm almost anyone in the long run. But the absolute terror of every single grain is badly calibrated. What matters is moderation, not total prohibition or total carelessness. Salt isn't harmful to everyone. Every body has its own tolerance written into its genes. The hope of every spicy food lover. Eat chili peppers. They burn fat and help you lose weight. Almost a lie. Capsaicin, the substance that makes chili peppers spicy, does produce a small increase in energy expenditure and can give you some feeling of fullness. That part is true. The problem is that the effect is so tiny it doesn't move the needle on the scale at all. We're talking about a few extra calories, nothing you'd notice by the end of the month. If eating spicy food helps you eat less because you feel full sooner, or eat more slowly, great. But chili peppers aren't a fat burner. You're asking spice for a miracle it can't deliver. It makes you sweat and tear up, not slim down. The burn is a lot of noise for very few calories. The promise of the express diet: drink red tea, and the fat just melts away on its own, dissolved by the cup. A shelf-talker lie. No tea burns fat in any way that actually matters for weight loss. Red tea, green tea, and their relatives contain caffeine and some antioxidants that in studies produce an effect on metabolism so tiny it's practically zero when it comes to the scale. If drinking tea helps you, it's because you're swapping a sugary drink for a calorie-free one, or because the caffeine curbs your appetite a bit. But the cup has no power to melt your belly while you watch TV. It slims down your wallet buying the miracle tea, not your waistline. For years, they sold it to you as the smart choice. Ditch animal butter and switch to vegetable margarine, which is healthier. Half true, and with some history behind it. Old margarines were loaded with trans fats, a byproduct of the industrial process used to solidify the oil. And those trans fats turned out to be among the worst things you could eat for your heart. Much worse than butter. Over time, margarines were reformulated, and today many have little to no trans fat. But the myth that any margarine is automatically healthy stuck around. The truth is that neither one is a health food. They're both fats to use in moderation. Arguing over which one is less bad is like debating which cigarette makes you cough less. Neither butter nor margarine is a hero. Use a little of whichever one you like best. The trendy superfood, bone broth, which they say repairs your joints, rejuvenates your skin, and heals your gut. Half true and pretty overhyped. Bone broth is nutritious. It has minerals, gelatin, and some protein. It's great as a comforting meal. The problem is everything extra that gets tacked onto it. The idea that the collagen in the broth goes straight to your knees or your face is false, because your body breaks it down into amino acids during digestion and then decides where to send them. It doesn't take special requests. It's a rich, healthy broth, not a repair potion. It warms your soul in winter. It doesn't rebuild your cartilage. Good dish, terrible miracle. You go to the store and pick the skim yogurt and skim milk with a clear conscience, because no fat means healthier. Half true and pretty debated. When you strip the fat out of a dairy product, you also strip out the vitamins that travel in that fat, like A and D, and so the skim version doesn't taste so bland. Sometimes sugar or thickeners get added instead. Recent studies have found that whole dairy isn't linked to worse cardiovascular health, and it might even keep you fuller and have you eating less afterward. Skim isn't the saint, and whole isn't the villain it was painted as. If you like whole milk better, you're not sinning. Stripping the fat out of yogurt doesn't turn it into holy water. Sometimes the full version is the one that leaves you more satisfied. You grab the package that says whole grain on the shelf and toss it in your cart with a clear conscience. Because whole grain means healthy, almost a lie. Just because a cookie is made with whole grain flour doesn't automatically make it healthy. A lot of those whole grain cookies have almost the same amount of sugar, fat, and calories as the regular ones, just with a percentage of whole grain flour and packaging covered in little green leaves that makes you feel good about it. The word whole grain on a package is often more marketing than nutrition. To know if something is truly healthy, you have to flip the package over and read the ingredient list and the sugar content, not just take the front label's word for it. The whole grain claim on the front can be hiding the same old thing on the back. The package promises health. The label on the back tells the truth. The scary headline, "Fries and burgers hook you just as hard as anything that's genuinely hard to quit." Half true and pretty exaggerated. It's true that ultra-processed foods are designed to be irresistible. That exact combination of fat, sugar, and salt that activates the brain's pleasure circuits and pushes you to keep eating. But comparing that to a serious chemical dependency is stretching the rope way too far. There's no withdrawal syndrome or biological hook comparable to that. And plenty of people eat ultra-processed food from time to time with no problem at all. Being extremely appetizing and easy to overeat doesn't make it a textbook addiction. The concept of food addiction is still debated in science and is far from being as clear-cut as the headline makes it sound. You overeat because it tastes good, and it was designed for exactly that, not because you can't control yourself. You pay more for free-range or happy hen eggs, fully convinced they're way more nutritious. Almost a lie, or at least a big exaggeration. There are nutritional differences between a free-range egg and a caged one, but they're small. Some minor variation in certain nutrients depending on what the hen eats. Nothing that would change your health. In protein, in fat, in the essentials, they're practically identical. There are good reasons to choose free-range eggs, animal welfare, the flavor some people prefer, but much more nutritious isn't one of them. You're paying for the ethics and for the more orange yolk, not for an egg that makes you stronger. Happy hens lay eggs that are nearly identical to the others. The difference is in how they lived, not in how much it feeds you. The elegant justification for the glass of wine at lunch. Wine helps the food go down. It's good for digestion. A gentle lie. Alcohol doesn't speed up or improve digestion. If anything, it slows it down, because it can delay stomach emptying. That feeling that it settles well comes more from the relaxation alcohol gives you than from anything actually digestive. In large amounts, it even irritates the stomach and throws everything off. The idea of digestive wine is a nice cultural excuse, not a medical fact. If you enjoy a glass with your meal, enjoy it for the pleasure and the moment, not because it's helping you process your steak. Wine goes along for the ride. It doesn't do the digesting. What settles your food is your stomach working on its own, glass or no glass beside it. The sweetest and most exaggerated excuse: she's pregnant. She needs to eat for two. A lie about quantity. A pregnant woman doesn't need double the food. Not even close. In the first third of pregnancy, she practically needs no extra calories at all. And in the following months, the added amount runs from about 300 to 450 calories a day, which is roughly a yogurt with fruit or a small sandwich, not a whole second dinner. What matters a lot more is quality. More nutrients like iron, calcium, and folic acid. Not more volume just for the sake of it. Truly eating for two leads to weight gain that later brings complications for both mom and baby. It's not about eating double, it's about eating better. Eating for two sounds sweet, but the body asks for a little bit more, not a giant-sized portion. You order a decaf at night, fully convinced you're drinking brown water without a single gram of stimulant in it. Half true. Decaf does have caffeine, just a lot less, not zero. The decaffeination process removes most of it, but there's always a small amount left, around 2 to 5 milligrams per cup, compared to over 90 in a regular coffee. For most people, that tiny amount doesn't do anything, but if you're very sensitive to caffeine and drink several decafs in a row, the total can end up disturbing your sleep. The word decaf promises a zero that's actually closer to almost zero. It turned the volume down. It didn't turn off the radio. If you're sleeping badly, count those caffeine-free coffees you had one too many of as well. The careless logic. They're going to fall out anyway, so why bother taking care of a kid's baby teeth? A big mistake. Baby teeth matter, and a lot. They help the child chew, speak, and learn to pronounce words properly. And they also hold the space for the permanent teeth coming in underneath. If a baby tooth gets a cavity and is lost too early, the neighboring teeth shift over, and later the permanent tooth comes in crooked or can't find room. A cavity in a baby tooth can also hurt, get infected, and affect the adult tooth forming right beneath it. These aren't disposable teeth with no importance. They're the guide and the dress rehearsal for the permanent set. Taking care of them means taking care of the mouth the child will have for the rest of their life. Yes, they fall out, but while they're there, they count. And well, that's as far as we go. 1 hour of myths about your body and your food, burned to ashes, one by one. If you made it to the end, leave me a like if I blew your mind even once. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next video.